We are a distinct honor, and I figured the timeliness could not be better than to have someone come and talk to us about conducting Zoom meetings by someone who knows whereof and has a vested interest in having Zoom meetings succeed and wants to help you all to do the best possible meetings you can with Zoom. And it's amazing. I have to say positive things about it. Being a technological dinosaur, I don't even text, but I think Zooms are great. I've been getting together with, believe it or not, my 8th grade graduating class. I've been getting together with family members all across the country and trying to get together with some fraternity brothers from college, and all on Zoom, let alone the Zoom Toastmaster meetings. So I think it has great potential and great positive possibilities. And it achieved one of my dreams, and that was always the Speakers Bureau could be seen by people all over the district, especially at once, but even unrecorded. But having a Zoom meeting will help bring some of the people who don't normally make it, and especially the ones that maybe had a difficult time getting out to do it. So I am looking forward to Jeremiah's presentation, and I hope I will learn a lot. I'm sure all of us will. Jeremiah, you got it. Take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I think you kind of built it up a lot more than I was really prepared for, but we'll see how this goes today. But fellow Toastmasters, I wanted to spend some time today to talk a little bit about Zoom. You know, a year ago, we were all talking about that the big change in Toastmasters was going to be pathways, and that was going to be the thing that we were going to focus on this year. Little did we know that all of this was going to happen, and our world was going to be changed upside down. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the options that we all have with Zoom and some of the things that we're able to do, because we have a lot of times where you'll be inside club meetings and there's always different things. There's always something new to be learning, but it's an opportunity to be able to find new ways to be able to grow. And Zoom is that new way. And I want to start off with just some of the different security features with Zoom. That seems to be a big conversation right now that people are always looking into and trying to understand more and more. And every day Zoom is coming out with something new in regards to security features. Whenever Zoom first came out and when it actually started, before you could just set up a Zoom meeting and off you went. But then we had Zoom bombers come on. So now, anytime a Zoom meeting is set up, what you'll find is they will actually set up a registration link. And if anybody from, I think Esther is on here. So her club in particular uses that. It's actually a link that you can publish. And then from there, they're able to submit their request, they fill out their information, and then it sends them a link to your actual meeting. So it gives you that extra little bit of layer. But you can also be able to set up passwords. You have waiting rooms. Like today, before you came in, we were all set up in a waiting room. So that way you can be able to monitor who is there and be able to touch base. For example, in my club this morning, we had somebody on our meeting that I wasn't for sure who it was. I had them recognize themselves beforehand, so that way I was able to make sure that we had the best security possible. But it's those security things is really what's going to make sure that we're able to have productive meetings. Because a lot of times what we have is we have people that may just want to come on, and especially in these times, they just don't have a whole lot of other things to do besides cause some problems. So we really want to be able to make sure that we're keeping our members safe, but especially as we're having meetings like this where they're recorded, we want to make sure that we know that everybody knows what's going on. But also, just outside of meeting, there's a lot of different platforms that we can use within the Zoom feature. And I'm talking a lot about Zoom today. I see Karen's on the call today, and for example, her district, they use GoToMeeting. So each one has their own little different nuances. I'm just familiar with Zoom. But then one of the things that I love about it is it also has different features that you're able to utilize. For those of you who joined us this past weekend, we actually had a webinar. And there's a couple of minor differences between that. So a Zoom meeting is what we're doing here. Everybody can mute themselves, unmute themselves, be able to turn on and off their cameras. It's really a very user-friendly for people to be able to connect and interact together. But webinars is a different function. So a webinar actually separates everybody between panelists and attendees. And only attendees are able to ask, they can ask questions, they're able to chat, different things like that, but they are not able to share screen. They're also not able to turn on their microphones. And so that's important, especially, for example, like we had our meeting and how a lot of the districts are having their meetings currently. Having a webinar is something that's really going to be able to give you a lot more control of your meeting and to ensure that you're able to have a functioning formatted meeting. So those are the two real big differences between those. And it's also important too that whenever you're in a webinar, not only do you get Q&A, but there's also poll features. So if you go to a webinar section, and for example, I was talking to Jose recently about this, but the district, since we subscribe to Zoom every year, we can actually do a live poll to be able to have information and get real-time results for information with webinars. So those different things are really, those are great. But then also the nice part is you can also have breakout rooms. So some of us had an opportunity to participate in the contest this year, and you had the opportunity to be able to participate in the table topics contest. And we actually have our winner this year, Roz Carter. Her picture went off the screen, but Roz did amazing. But one of the great things about it is you're actually able to put members into a separate room. So we currently have an outcome of about 500 people that we're able to utilize inside our account at all times. The nice part is we can put people in different rooms through our account. So that way, and that room has its own security features. It has its own setup. So that way they can be able to talk separately and then be able to talk differently to everybody else and not be able to be heard, but they can also let themselves back into the main room. So those are just a couple of the nice things that you're able to utilize with Zoom. And if any of your clubs have started utilizing that, we actually have a couple of clubs that are looking to do that for their voting, for different opportunities for their members to be able to get a chance to be able to practice. The next thing I want to talk about is virtual backgrounds. And virtual backgrounds, I have a love-hate relationship with virtual backgrounds. I have to be honest with you. I love virtual backgrounds because it gives us an opportunity to personalize ourselves. But I hate virtual backgrounds for the fact of is it can sometimes be very distracting. And that's something that we really need to think of as participants in any kind of call. For example, just while I'm on this call and while we've been having this conversation back and forth, my screen continuously changes as people turn on their cameras and turn off their cameras. And so that's something important to remember, that even though that we're attendees, it's important to remember that we do have some proper etiquette. Like right now, somebody just went off. So one of the things that I would recommend is, and one of the proper etiquettes is, you'll always find, just turn off your camera. If you leave your camera off, that allows the opportunity for the speaker to be able to have a controlled screen, but then also main people that need to keep their cameras on are able to, and it doesn't adjust back and forth. There's some opportunities for virtual backgrounds, and I know Dennis was on here earlier and he showed his virtual background. But being able to use the Toastmaster cards to be able to show the colors, the different things that you're able to utilize for the backgrounds can be very beneficial to your meeting. For example, like we were able to utilize the American flag today for our prayer. But the hard part is, and my dislike for them is, like I said before, is sometimes they can be distracting. Every week we're on a call with our RA, and one person on our call looks for different backgrounds to be able to try to create humor in a meeting. And that's all great and everything, but after an hour-long meeting, it starts becoming a little distracting. And whenever we're in these situations, it's important to remember what we're in this conversation for. My background, as you can see, is just my background of my house, but I've set this up specifically to tell a little bit about me. So if you actually look behind me, you'll be able to see my medals behind. They're not nearly as impressive as Ed's, but you'll also be able to see I'm a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. You'll be able to see the organization. You'll be able to see that's my office. But it's an example of who I am. And so it's important to remember that as you're speaking, whatever's going on in the background is also that representation. Now, I do have to tell you a little story real quick before I proceed. You also have to remember sometimes what can come into the background. And I was on a meeting recently. My son, who I love my son to death, all of a sudden I was sitting here and I forgot to adjust my camera before the meeting. And just right off here to this room right here is actually my living room. And as soon as he got out of the bath, he runs out of the bathroom and he runs right to my doorway. The only problem was he wasn't dressed yet. So everybody on that Zoom call got an opportunity to be able to see what my son was made of, needless to say. But those are all opportunities that we're able to learn, and clearly now I make sure I adjust my camera ever before I turn it on. But the next thing that I want to talk about too is we already talked a little bit about it, but I want to talk about videos. We've talked a little bit about turning on and off your cameras in the middle of the speech and how it can really become very distracting. But then also it's important to remember whenever you're moving around, people can see. People can see, even if you're not at your computer, they're able to see if you're not paying attention. They're able to see if you're taking your laptop someplace else, but they're also able to see what you're wearing. Every so often, if you got an opportunity, you'll sometimes see we do have people that you can actually be able to see, some inappropriate things on their shirts. So all of that kind of stuff is important to remember, that just because we're sitting at home in our own comfort, and as the newscaster shows just recently on the news, you got to make sure you wear pants, because those are all important things that if you forget about, you're going to have a unfortunate moment. But now let's talk about audio. So there's a lot of different things that we can be able to do with audio, and I've seen some people with headphones, and they have their Bluetooth headphones and their things. I just stick with my normal headphones. I'm always scared to death that my headphones are going to die in the middle of a conversation. And I always try to keep myself on mute. But one of the things that you want to do is you always want to make sure you keep yourself on mute if you're not speaking, because that background noise does get picked up. And what you'll find is, depending on the way your participants are actually showing their screen in the video, what'll end up happening is your picture will end up taking over the speaker's picture. So it's important to remember just those little things to be able, and it may be inadvertently, that it may just be a sound in the background that will all of a sudden take over their picture. But let's say you're muted and you just have something you want to be able to add. One of the nice parts is, and if you ever tried it, if you actually try to push your space bar right now, what you'll find, that's my son, if anybody was wondering, that's the unexpected background noise. But if you push the space bar on your keyboard, what it will do is it will actually unmute you for a brief moment of time. So that way you can just speak just for a second. Excuse me, just 1 second. Is he okay? Okay. Okay, sorry, I just want to make sure he was okay. It's the benefits of having kids, I guess. But if you push your space bar, it'll actually allow you to be able to unmute yourself. So that way you can be very, very quickly. But the nice part is you don't have to remember to put yourself back to mute again, because it'll automatically put you back to there. And one of the best features that I love, and one of the features that we've always had a conversation with in my club, is Zoom an opportunity? Does Zoom really give us an opportunity to be able to show our screen? And I know Sunny's going to have an opportunity to be able to do a share screen later. But the great part about having meetings is you can actually have the option of sharing your own screen. And if you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll actually see on the left it says mute, stop video, participants chat. If you click share screen, one of the nice things is you actually get an opportunity to be able to share your screen, and whichever screen you want to show, your whiteboard, your iPhone, iPad, any of that different things. So the nice part is, like, you can actually have a whiteboard and be able to brainstorm ideas in the middle of a meeting. But then also you're able to transfer screens over. So a lot of times I'll already have all my screens open for any information I need, and I can just bring them over to the screen I'm sharing. But that's something that each participant is able to do, and they're able to have an opportunity to be able to still utilize the PowerPoint and still be able to get those points across that they were really looking forward to. So those are just a couple of things that you're able to utilize within Zoom. And some of the things, there's a lot of stuff that you can also do outside of it, but these are a couple of tips and information that we can take back to our clubs and be able to hopefully help their meetings run a little bit smoother. This is a process for all of us to be able to help each other grow. And every day I find something new about Zoom that I'm able to utilize, and every day something technology-wise I'm able to just grow from. And so it's so important to be able to take this information, go back and practice with your members and have an opportunity. This month our district is focusing on open houses. So you want to make sure you practice these prior to having your open house. So that way your members, they're able to show what we do in Toastmasters, and they show how we are professional people that are ready and prepared to be able to present. Because every day we're going to have opportunities to be able to utilize this system more and more. And what we'll find in the very near future is that a lot of people, I do believe, will be able to start working from home more. And this is going to become more and more the way that we'll be actually conducting business. I remember 15 years ago, whenever I got into sales, cell phones were a thing of the past. I'm thinking cell phones were nowhere. Nobody really had them, and they absolutely changed our industry, and they changed our world. And I firmly believe that this has put us in a position to where we are going to be utilizing this so much more in our life. So thank you so much, Tom, for the opportunity to be able to spend some opportunity to be able to talk about this. And I want to just see if there's any questions that anybody may have before I proceed to return contact back over to Tom. Any questions? Besides that, my clock is actually incorrectly timed. I saw somebody say. Karen, yes.
One of the things I noticed is when I have you in speaker view, I get to see all of the Jeremyha, but
I'm sorry.
no, that's not a bad thing. But I noticed that sometimes people will call in and use that as their mic and then have a separate link, which is their video feed, so that when they're talking, if you do speaker view, then it just shows like their little icon. You don't see their live face moving.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more difficult if you're hard of hearing to be able to follow along in a video environment. If somebody opts to do the dual call-in, is that something that you preface your keynote saying, can you use a single sign-in? Because we've had a couple of them that do the two and don't even think about that.
So we have so people do have opportunities, and a lot of times one of the part that they end up doing and where that comes from is they actually don't sync their systems together.
Right.
So one of the things that you actually should do is if you look down at the bottom left of your screen where it says mute, what you can actually do is it will actually allow you to switch to phone audio, which then syncs those two together. What you'll find is a lot of people, what they'll do is since they see the phone numbers, they log in via Zoom and then they call the phone numbers. And so that's the reason why it's not syncing together and it doesn't line up together. Excellent. So it's important that whenever you do that, you want to be able to sync those together. So that way you're able to have just one account. It makes it a lot easier to be able to manage as a host, but also it's going to be able to eliminate that double talking is what you're talking about. Cool. Any other questions?
Sarah has one.
Oh, Sarah, please.
A minute. Okay, here I am. A lot of meetings that I've been to, when people want to clap and acknowledge that somebody spoke, they'll put their hands by their head and shake it. And this actually is really quite nice, because then you feel acknowledged that somebody did that. Or else they're like Edwin just did, put a hand on and stuff. And all that works well, but we had somebody who is hearing impaired in our Thursday morning meetings now, and she says that you don't put your hands like this. Oh, this camera is so weird. You put it at the side of your head and do this. And then if somebody is muted and you don't want them to mute, you go like that, from muted to unmute. And that way you don't have to say the words and disrupt things.
Right. No, absolutely. And those are all those are all things that people are coming out with, is kind of proper etiquettes and everything. But absolutely, and we see that a lot more now where members are doing that. But then also you see where members, if you look right underneath, like on mine, it's right underneath the participants for like asking questions. You can raise your hands. You can say yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down. And so you have different opportunities also to be able to interact with your members without having to have that. Any other questions?
Just a quick comment.
Oh, yes, Jose.
Would you like to speak a little bit about pinning the person that is talking, especially if they're giving a speech?
That's a great, Jose. Thank you. That's the reason why Jose's program quality director. He's way better than I am at this stuff. But yeah, so if you actually get an opportunity, if you're on your screen right now, and if you take your mouse over the screen of somebody, what you'll see where you could chat with somebody indirectly, but you can also pin their video. So for example, I'm over Al right now. So if I pin Al's video, Al is actually the only person that I see, and I see everybody else's small icons right along the top. So this is an opportunity to where, let's say somebody does have their microphone on, you can actually pin the speaker or whoever you want to be able to have just them show, and it will only show them. And then to be able to unpin them, it's over on the top left-hand side of your screen. You just click unpin, and then it should show up with just a picture of yourself. And then up on the top right-hand corner, you click speaker view. If you see where it says speaker view, and then it takes you right back to where it has everybody. So those are a couple of the viewing options that you're able to have. Yeah.
I have another question again.
Yeah.
Sorry. Can you pin more than one person?
For pinning, no. So you pin just the one person. What you can do though is you can hide non-showing participants. So like I always hide everybody that's a non-showing participant. So like if you have those on your screen, you can actually click those same 3 dots and it will say hide non-video participant, and it takes off everybody. So for example, we have 24 people right now with their cameras off. So it gives you an opportunity to be able to only have the people with their cameras on. So like at our contest this past weekend, we had everybody's cameras off. So now you were only able to see the Toastmaster, you were only able to see the timer, and that's all, and then the speaker themselves. So just those different things. That way it really kind of helps eliminate some of the clutter.
And Jeremiah,
Great,
that worked great for the showcase as well, by the way.
It did. Yeah, that was awesome for the showcase. Esther, you have something?
It's also a comment along the pinning. For my clubs, usually we advise the speaker to pin the timer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's one thing that has worked very well for us, so that you don't miss the timer along the speaker gallery thing that's
Right.
on here.
Well, and it's interesting. So I spoke this past week at 407, and it's very interesting. So one thing that I learned, that I have to pin somebody else whenever I speak,
Yes.
because I'm not used to seeing myself speak. And whenever I'm talking, it's actually a different feature to be able to see that, and to be able to see the mannerisms in the face you make. I never realized I make such weird faces whenever I speak. And so, but it's important to be able to also pin the timer, but also sometimes to be able to do that, so that way you're also not distracted, because you're looking at yourself and you see what you're doing, and that becomes a distraction. So great. Okay. Any other questions?
Oh, it's Sarah again.
Hey, Sarah.
Whoops. One of the things that Dominique was talking about when we were doing a meeting was to look at the camera rather than look at ourselves when we're speaking.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little weird and it takes a while to get used to it. And when you're looking at the camera, it looks more like you're looking to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're looking at yourself, you look like you're looking down
Right.
all the time. So that was a good piece of advice too.
Yeah, and a lot of that really depends on your setup too. So for example, I have dual screens here at my house. So I'm looking at my camera, but my camera's off to one side of one of my screens. But that way I can still be able to look at my Zoom meeting, but it looks like I'm still looking at my camera, but I have my other screen over here that I'm able to pull stuff over from. So it just really depends on your setup and the different things that you have. But having your camera, my camera is actually set at about eye level. And a lot of times what you'll find is people, especially like on their laptops are down on their desk, it's opened up. So it starts changing the angles of everything they're looking at. So just making those adjustments. I know, for example, Karen and Mark, whenever at their place, I believe Mark actually has an eye level camera because he has a standing desk. So all of those different things, if you take into account, is an opportunity to be able to just see what other people are going to see. You can also be able to test any of that stuff too beforehand. If you go to like your video and you go to video settings, you can test your video beforehand, be able to see what your background looks like. Because like, for example, my background back here does not look good virtually. So I know that's why I don't utilize that whatsoever. But you're able to check that out beforehand, but you can also be able to see how you look on the camera, be able to check your eye level, make sure everything lines up beforehand. So that way there's none of those unforeseen instances. Any other questions? We'll take one or two more, and then from there, I'll hand it back over to Tom. Dennis, do you have something?
Yes, I'm wondering, what do you think, or maybe others think, about the use when you can, because your computer will do it, of the green, yellow, and red backgrounds? I find it really kind of I don't know, it's troublesome to me when I'm watching a speech and to see the different improvisations for the time indicators. It's hard to even tell the color of them sometimes, or I know some computers won't do the background well, but when they do, I find it so much easier to see when the change comes and where you're at in the speech time.
No, I personally, I like those different colors. If it's able to be used, I like it, because I would agree with you. A lot of times what we get is, well, we need to have, not only do we need to have the card, but then they need to have green written on it. There's so many, we've almost overcomplicated the timing features, I feel, in a lot of fashions, whenever it comes to Zoom meetings, because people are always saying, oh, well, you need to write green because they may not be able to see that it's green. So I think that's where it really comes out great. And like Bob just did a great example of what those colors look like. So that way you can really be able to see, yeah, exactly like what you're doing. It's very clear, it's clear cut, but it also really is in line with exactly what we do during our Toastmasters meetings. You know, we don't say green, yellow, red. We just show those colors, and it really keeps us right in line with those overall ideals of whenever we were meeting face to face. We have time for one more question. Any other questions?
Make sure you also include the sound effects in case you have visually limited, like Susan Ali or whatever.
Yes, yeah, now that's, yeah, so you do have something like that where if you have somebody that's visually impaired, you're gonna make adjustments to that, but we already have those, we already kind of figured those up, and those are already all discussed beforehand whenever you get to things, because you will have opportunity, or you will have times where you are gonna need that, but that's always discussed beforehand in meeting, but we would do that anyways. Okay, one last question. And okay. None seeing. Thank you all so much. I hope you had an opportunity to be able to learn something today. I hope you enjoyed this. And I hope your clubs are taking advantage of this opportunity. Once again, I would like to just give one plug that the district has a Zoom account that we are offering to any of your clubs to be able to utilize. So if you would like that, please feel free to contact me, and we'll make sure you get you guys on the schedule. Thank you so much. Stay safe, everybody. And back to you, Tom.
Yep. Thank you.